Welcome to the Book Dormer. Today we are going to have a spoiler-filled, so a full spoiler review of Neal Asher's War Bodies. Or, as he said in the little intro, reptile dysfunction. We'll explain that when it comes up. Very mixed thoughts on this book. In fact, I would have probably DNF'd the book if it wasn't for the most annoying thing that it does that started to get funny. So every time it happened, I just started down a pathway. I'll explain that when we get to it. Let's meet very much a plot-driven book. Two ways to look at it. Is this a predictable teen drama? Or is this a treatise on what it means to be human in an age of cyborgness and AI? No, it's the former. It is absolutely just a predictable teen drama set with a lot of war. So you get a ton of war, ton of fighting, sometimes a little confusing. And other times you get just, things being added in. But there's a lot of teen drama as somebody hits puberty. Let's meet that character first. That's Piper. Piper is a young man. He's been artificially held back. Apparently they repress puberty in this location. On this planet, they're on Founders World, a group of zealots who left the Polity. The Polity is like the Human AI Alliance, otherwise known as most of humanity. And the Polity, the Cyber Rat, they're calling it in this book, they're the Cyber AT or the Cyber Rat. And they never have anyone say it out loud. So I'm going to go with Cyber Rat because they're a bunch of rats. And I think that fits better. It's a Founders World is this very artificially low populated, 840 million, on a planet which should be able to support billions, but it's being held back because the warlord and his old guard, as they're known, don't want to have enough people. They don't want to have competition for leadership. So they're in charge. They always keep in charge. And one of the ways they keep it in charge is by turning normal people, normal humans, then move them over into cyborgs. All right, so Piper. First off, can we stop for a second? Piper, main guy character name. Piper is a dog in my neighborhood. She's very sweet, and it's very hard not to picture her when you see Piper, the main character, doing things. Yeah, sometimes the name matters, right? All right, so Piper gets smushed at work. He's working construction, which apparently means you control robots with your implants and get them to do things. So he's got some skill at this. And he gets distracted and gets smushed at work. That fractures his hips, his legs. Cyber Rat, they would remove them and start taking away the humanity and turn them into a much more easily controlled robot or cyborg type human. Instead, unbeknownst to Piper, his parents are part of the rebellion. Piper just walked outside the window. I should have got a picture real fast. A bunch of dogs walking on the house today. Gotta love when the doggos go by. So Piper's parents are part of the rebellion, or an underground that wants to replace and overthrow the warlords. They're working with the Polity. The Polity are there nominally on a diplomatic mission, but the Polity are just lying assholes. They are going to mess with every person everywhere, but pretend they're the good guys. And oddly enough, do some nice things. So they actually have a little bit of depth. That's good. Unlike the warlord in charge. So Piper gets smashed. He's going to get his legs removed so they can start down the path of not being human. And the Polity saves him and heals him because they have better technology. This upsets Castron, the warlord, twirling mustache leader of the Cyber Rat. He is not a fan of any of this. He is a just absolute D-bag of the worst kind, yet super brilliant and smart apparently, and pretty brave, willing to fight. It's a warlord. Picture a warlord who's good at science. You got him, and he. Rebellion starts, so let's start through the plot, because this is really just a plot story. I know there are other elements in the character. For instance, the reptile. I mentioned this earlier, that the title of this book really should be Reptile Dysfunction. Piper has a reptile brain talking to him. In his mind, he is seeing reptile. The reptile says this. The reptile says that. Oh, my reptile brain does this. And the first 20 times, I'm thinking, all right, yeah, I've seen that in fiction before. Okay. I don't have my books. Every one of those is a mention of the word reptile. It got to the point, like, I started doing this because I mentioned it to my daughter, and she's like, well, hey, I have tabs that match that end color, the spray. And so gave me some. You can see that streak about the time I started it. I had to order more tabs. She ran out of tabs. I had to order more so that I could get each one of these reptile mentions in here. Now, I would have probably stopped this book because it's just a meandering, we go here, we do this thing, we meet characters, and then we ignore them for the rest of the book. It's one of those kind of books. Anytime that it looks like there's going to be a good payoff, there isn't a good payoff. It's one of those. But it got to where every time I saw the word reptile, I would bellow reptile and put a sticker in. And so my daughter's in here reading, and I'm reading in my chair, and we're like, reptile. And we just, it turned in, you started saying it. I started seeing it when I went out to places. I went to the aquarium, the shed up in Chicago, and had to take a picture of the reptile sign because reptile. Look at this. I don't do this to my books. I have never marked my fiction books. Can you hear that? That's a lot of reptile. How did that make it through an editor? How did at some point we didn't say, yeah, we get it, you can just use a different word? Anyways, the reptile brain in Piper is something a little bit different because you see, Piper is not just Piper. Piper is the one. It's a teen drama. He's the one. And as the one, he was actually made the one by his dad. His dad, who used some super high tech that he's developed that scares the daylights of the Polity, who thought it was maybe a alien technology from a group called the Jane, who we only have discussion, but turned out, nope, it's not. Because that would have been interesting. But no, it's not them. But it's this super technology. And in that, somehow, his dad's inner thoughts, the reptile brain thoughts, got into Piper's bones and tries to battle for control. And this is like your flight or fight, right? Your initial, hunger, mate, those kind of instinctual things. And that's the reptile brain. And we spend, there's got to be 200 references to. I didn't count them. You saw how many there were there. There's a lot of mentions of reptiles. A lot. And it always means reptile brain. It's never actually talking about reptile. It just means those characters. Or the fight between Piper and his dad's instincts. Because it really wasn't his dad. Apparently it wasn't intentional. Now, since we mentioned the dad, scientist obviously, does these good things. As part of the whole, they decide to have the rebellion and the help of the Polity, the dad gets captured, gets super tortured, and is left to die as soon as Piper shows up. He shows up and dad's there and dad's dying, even though the Polity apparently have amazing technology and can just save people. Apparently that doesn't happen in this case because plot armor. So dad's dead. Piper's ticked. He's ready to fight. So he does the rebellion. He goes looking for Castron. Castron leaves on there's a giant spaceship. It's from the enemy of the Polity, the Praetor. And this Praetor ship leaves. Piper wants to fight it. He gets told, no, you can't fight it. Just one of those things. So off it goes. Piper's like, well, I'm going to follow him and kick his butt. The Polity's like, that's a great idea. You should also bring all these warriors with you because you just took over this area. You should bring that. And now that Piper, of course, once he figured out he's the one, now he's got the ability to just control cyborgs and robots and AIs. He can just learns this in a couple days. Little training montage. Oh, And in the middle of things, you're like, I'll try this. It didn't work. Oh, hold up. Now I have that skill. It's like the Matrix, except you don't have to call home and ask somebody to load the skill set into your brain. You just decided you should have the skill set, so you do. He's the one. For now. All right, so Polity. He gets in. He and the thousands of these war body things, and you can see them. These are the big ones. And they're pretty cool, right? Big crab fighting vehicle things. They go off to fight. Helps on the rebels. They fight the Praetor. They beat the Praetor. He starts beating them because he can minorly control and like freeze a lot of their very complicated. It's actually a pretty cool way that's described. This system of where one Praetor, big crab, scorpion, whatever the heck these things are, can spawn others, spawn, make them into little robot things and send them out to fight for him, and they control them completely, and they all hate each other. They all want to fight. He could just like, nope, you're all frozen. Boop. Makes for an easy fight. And he does this over and over as long as it keeps working, and he is absolutely just whooping the Praetor. The Praetor end up having a rebellion of their own. The Praetor come back. Someone wants to meet with him, and he says yes, and everyone's like, well, obviously they're gonna kill you. Instead, they just want to meet the person who beat them, and he humiliates them because he's the one, and he's a teen, and teen dudes is the one probably are not going to be as nice as like the normal teen girl who's the one in the books. So the Praetor mentioned, oh, hey, we have news about Castron. And they go, okay, what's the news? Hand him over. And they go, we don't have him. And now obviously Piper's ticked because this is his reason for this whole fight, is to go get that guy and break him up, I guess. Nope. They said, we recovered our ship that came back, and he was not on it. Apparently, he never got on the ship. Did I mention that the Polity are a bunch of a-holes? Because they probably knew about this. Oh, by the way, he's back on the main home world. Yeah, he's right where he was. Oh, you left your mom there? Yeah, that might have been a mistake. Actually, they kind of took his mom away, but they had tried to put in a government by that point. Let's just say there's a lot of little complications going on here. So he goes back. He races home, gets his army, goes in, like, I'm the one, I can do this. And what do you know if Agent Smith, Castron, hasn't figured out all those same powers because he had Dad's notes and could figure it out. Only these two people, but he had these notes, he could figure it out. So now they're on equal footing, and this guy, of course, is a warlord who's been battling for years. Big battle, big fight. Oh, spoiler, they win. Okay. Or the Piper's team wins because he's the one, even if Agent Smith or Castron becomes kind of the one. Yeah. All right. There we go. That is your main big spoiler plot. Let's go through some of the other goofiness in this. Piper starts becoming a guy. Like, grows up, kind of has puberty all in one little scene. Yeah, and the horniness starts. So he thinks he's horny for clothing. His mom, I really thought for a second this dude was going to go right down that path. And I'm like, this is not happening. Thankfully he doesn't. Some random Marine girl who, they basically found a girl who said yes, and they had a relationship for a while. And then, so you think it's going to keep going that way. And then at one point he's got these twin girls who are partial cyborgs. They were made cyborgs against their will. Right, same kind of thing. Random accident. We found out these accidents weren't so random. People were being smashed. Anytime there's like a political fight, you smash the kid, make the kid into partial of a robot. Now you got the kid under control. Except for when they're not under control, because Piper's the one and can just go, nope, not under your control. So he gets these women turned back because the Polity has the ability to restore people back to their human bodies. So he gets them restored back to their human body and then does nothing. It's like, this had to be going there. This had to be what it was about. So it was actually a fun little, I'm assuming that was a tease where he was doing this. All right. Decent tease, I suppose, but it feels like another example where you had characters and you were going to do something with the characters and just decided no. It kind of feels like a webtoon or like one of the series like you get out of Japan where they put it in and they build it up over time. And then sometimes along the path, the author just decides, I didn't like that path. It's not what I want to continue to do. So then I just switch to something else. Seems like that way with a lot of the characters. Just sometimes the characters just aren't going to stay around. Let's see, is there anything else that we need to really talk about on this in the reptiles? You're not going to say reptile every so often, so we can pop a reptile on the screen. Reptile. How about this? This book on Goodreads has a 4.17. That is at least a point higher than I would have thought it would come in at. Usually a book that's kind of meandering and kind of just there is what, like a 3.4, 3.5 on Goodreads. 4.17 on Amazon, which is always a little higher because Amazon's, you're probably not voting on a book that you didn't buy. So it's already kind of always gets a little bump on the points. Is a 4.4. There are really good books below that number. There are really good books below 4.17 on Goodreads. Yet this is super high up. So I'm reading through different reviews people came up with. Maybe it's just that Neal has written a lot of books in this universe, and so people are reviewing the author. Sometimes we are willing to look at a book that maybe isn't perfect and give it a little bit more love if it's from an author that we like. That has to be what's happening. Because reptile, what on earth? Meandering, prepubescent, battle turns into a big war. A lot of discussion about a lot of inner just thought processing going on there from Piper. But he doesn't ever really seem to have I'm going to go throw all these people's lives away. Should I do this? No, he's just like, yeah, we're doing this, and we're doing it. Let's talk about some questionable choices Piper makes. One, so he can go, what? Through the army from cyber rats and just say, hey, we're doing this. He can just force them to. He also decided at one point to go in and adjust their thoughts and make them a little more wanting to do it. He has that capability, and they're aware that he did it. So it's kind of this weird mix between him realizing he shouldn't have done that seemed excessive. The people going, yeah, you made me like you, and then liking him. It's what a weird combo between them. Let's see. Other characters in there, Inster, he's Polity. He is a former cyborg warrior who's now been turned back to a human. That's on the idea of you can turn you all back to humans if you want. Came up, and he just lies the entire time. He's like the wizened old guy. Picture the wizened old guy who lies to you. And I don't mean like Obi-Wan lying. I told you what you needed to know at the time. No, this is, I'm lying to you because I want you to do this thing, and I just don't care what your opinion is. You are a tool under me. Which is very much the Polity. Albermech, the AI in charge on the Polity ship and the Polity area there, very much that way. They lied. They said he was like an AI on a research ship or a transport ship. Nope. Turned out he's the AI in charge. Which is interesting. I do find it interesting that the AIs lie in this world. Like I said, there's parts of this book and parts of the ideas that you're like, oh, that's actually kind of cool. And then there's the writing, and you're like, man, it's all over the place. I don't know what you would call this. A military space opera? A military predictable teen drama? It's something like that. Anyways, reptile. That's what you got. Would I read this again willingly? No. I mean, if you want to read it, Broken Binding has this copy. There's at least 300. They made 500 in the limited edition, and I'm guessing about a lot of other people looked and went, something seems fishy about these reviews, because it didn't sell. And Broken Binding books usually sell pretty well. So that one didn't. And I think there might be reasons. Or it's just that you get it much cheaper. I mean, to order in from the UK, obviously I'm in the States, you're really talking at least $50 a book to get it shipped and get it over here. And then I think about what I spend when I go to bookstores in the States. I'm like, I kind of get scoffy when I see a $35 hardback. It's like, come on, that seems a little high. But yet, $50 for Reptiles from the UK. Anyway, I'm trying not to be cheap on my books. I like my hardbacks. You can kind of see the hardbacks are growing and they're getting better back there. And new things are going on in the background. Anything else on this book we wanted to say? No. Other than, I would probably give it a 3 out of 5 just for the amount of good ideas. I'm deducting a half point from that for Reptile, so we're down to 2.5. It wasn't the worst book I've read this year, but it isn't far from it. I'm sorry for a bummer of a one, but hey, maybe now you're going to go into it and want to go read it. Now you're going to be like, this guy's wrong. I love that Neal Asher. Obviously, a lot of people do, because if you got 4.17 on Goodreads for this, obviously there's a reason. And it's probably that he has other good books. I did see somebody on Goodreads wondering if somebody else wrote this book and just put his name on it. Yeah, maybe. All right. Anyways, it's probably not true. Take care, and I'll see you next time with a happy good book.